Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll show you how I go about routing and navigation in Blazor WebAssembly. From simply navigating to another page programmatically, to keeping track of your routing history. So if I press the close button, it should go back. To highlighting which page you're on. It's also useful to know. I'm showing you how I keep track of the routing history. It's not perfect, but I'll show you how you can manage that. I like to make progressive web apps, so that means this will act like a standalone app on a mobile device. So you might not have access to these browser back and forward buttons. You might, however, of course, have access to the mobile device's back buttons or swipe gestures. But we want to increase our user experience in the app, so you can just navigate using the back buttons and the close buttons and the with some extra route data or not, all the good stuff. Let's dive into it. I'll be working on this application. It's also a progressive web app. I'll be making videos about how to transform your Blazor WebAssembly client application into a progressive web app. That's for another video, for other videos, how to install those as well. I implemented some basic navigation in here, so I can switch pages. However, I'm not currently seeing on which page I am. And I have not implemented any back buttons yet, but like for here, it would be useful to be able to go back or close this. You can of course use these buttons, but okay. I hope you're somewhat familiar with my setup, my project setup. If you're not, feel free to check out previous videos, but I can summarize it really quick. I have an API project, so I have multiple projects grouped. This project has an API and the Blazor WebAssembly SPA, so single page application Blazor WebAssembly client project. And I like to reuse code, front-end code that I put in a Razor client, a Razor class library. So some static files that I know I'm going to need in multiple front-end projects. So components, reusable components, all of that. And I'll be working with this Belgian Logos SPA, single page application, which shares components and other static files with this Pet Social SPA. And they all live in this shared SPA project. That's all you need to know, I think, for now. Let's take a look at, I made a service file. So wait, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's open up the navigation sidebar first. This is just a component, and you'll see I have I use the on-click event listener from Blazor, and then I navigate to a route specified as a constant string. This toggle sidebar is something custom I added. You could add like an ID of the specific, I don't know, specific product or something if you want to go to the detail page. But this is a navigation service I made myself and some custom methods. This is not the Blazor navigation manager, so you could use the Blazor navigation manager directly by injecting it. I think it's just navigation manager, if I'm correct. You could do the same. So I'm doing navigate to URL, so I could say navigation manager dot navigate to, and then pass my constant string. Oops. Let's say the page, the about page. And it has some more parameters, force reload and replace. The force reload you could use since most routing in Blazor is dynamic. It's just how do I best explain this? You're not actually hard refreshing your page, you're just loading in other pages or other components. So kind of manipulating the DOM, the HTML of the web of your web app or website to display another component or page. So the force reload, I'm not going to use it, but yeah, just know you can do it. Replace, never needed to. Anyway, so this is the native functionality. So the native Blazor navigation manager has a few more useful methods: URI, base URI, absolute and relative paths. We're going to use for checking which page we're on at the moment, and then highlighting the correct menu item, for example. Location changed, event listener, event handler. So you could be listening to whether the location changes and act on it if you wish to. But there's not much more in this navigation manager. There's not like a routing history or anything you would expect. So we're kind of going to do that, make that ourselves. I haven't checked the latest updates on Blazor routing. So I started building this a few, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, and there wasn't too much available for routing. So I just started myself implementing some basic, simple methods, routing methods. So feel free to check out whether there's maybe a better routing solution. Maybe there's a NuGet package or something that's gonna help you out more than starting from scratch. So let's undo this. And let's take a look at my own navigation service. So what I did, of course, I just made a class that's a navigation service, and I had to register it in the program.cs like this. And it needs a interface. Don't worry about this. I always like to move my possibly duplicate code into base classes to inherit from, but don't worry about that too much. So let's take a look. So as I just mentioned, most of my current logic is in my base class, which I inherit from. And I inherit from the interface, implement the interface. But in here, underneath, I'm going to add specific routing logic to this Belgian Dogo's single page application. It uses the navigation manager and the JS runtime. I'll talk more about that later. And I pass this to the base class, which is the navigation base service. So let's take a look at the navigation base service, where currently everything that I'm doing is residing. So navigation manager and JS runtime. I made a few methods that's basically just a wrapper around the original navigation manager, because I want to do some extra checks or passing extra data or something. So I made navigate to URL, or this could be simply called navigate to, whatever you want to call it. Toggle sidebar or something specific to my application. And then we just do the navigation manager navigate to. You could anticipate this force load, so add a, but I don't think I'm going to need it, so I'm not gonna add it. I also have a navigate to new window. This might be useful, for example, if you have external links. And maybe you want to do some custom logic before navigating to the link. Then I use this one, navigate to new window. Yeah, well, I'm not really doing anything custom in here, of course. This is basically the same as using an href tag, href, yeah, however you pronounce that tag, just a simple like HTML link with the target of blank. So opening the page in a new, somewhere new. And this actually just uses the the JavaScript functionality, window.location.open, passes the URL, and then with a target of blank. And then I like to make more declarative specific methods. So I can just safely use navigate to index throughout my application and not. And then if I ever have to change this to whatever, to index or to home, I can do it in one place. Ideally, I do this in the routepaths.index. So that's where I keep my constant strings with the page routes. Yeah, I forgot to show you the page routes, of course. But I'm not going to go too much in depth about how Blazor works, since there's a lot of good guides about that. Let's just quickly take a look at the About page, and you'll see on the top, at the top, you have the Add page, and then you can specify the route. So you can specify multiple routes, but it should both work. The reason why you might want to do that is if you have a multilingual, if you have to support multiple languages in your front end, you might, this is in my native language, overruns, and then about, which is the English translation. You could even have, let's say, if you want to access the page with or without a ID, so like a GUID, I think you can just do something like this and even specify the type if you want. That should all work. I think a GUID would be better, but I'm not sure. Yeah, feel free to find out more about that. Yeah. And feel free to ask questions in the comment section below if you have whatever complex scenarios that I didn't really showcase. But yeah, I just keep things simple in this channel. Okay, so my app is running, so I'll quickly try to show you whether. So if I click on a button, let's go check out that button first. Pages, I'm on the index page. And in here, I do navigation service that navigate to URL. I rather make a method in here. I'm gonna call it, like to make regions. Navigation. And I would say, let's just copy it. Navigate to about page or about whatever you want to call this. I have to add this to my interface. This is a page I'm only going to have in this application, that's why I'm putting it here. And then I could replace this with about. And this way I know every time I use navigate to about, it's going to point to the correct page. There's just one place I have to change the URL if I need to. That's in the constant. Sorry, this is just how I like to do it for consistency. You see, I have a navigate a new window. Let's check that out. I think that's like on the Instagram or Facebook. Trying to navigate to the new window. You could, like I also already mentioned, you could just have an href, an H tag with those things, and have a target of blank. But you have less control of what happens before and after, especially before. What I like to do often is keep a anonymous metric, like create an anonymous metric, like the user clicked on this link so many times. Okay, the next thing we'll probably want to do is somehow show which page we're on. So it should be this first one, should be highlighted. Also, oh no, just in here, should be highlighted. And for that, we're just gonna check whether the current route, the current URL base path contains this slug. For that, let me quickly close all that. I am going to use my navigation base service. You see, my other project is complaining since I have a method, added a method in my base. That's not good. Oh yeah, it's using the same SPA navigation service. I'll have to fix that. Okay, let's go to the navigate. Oh, sorry, that was too quick. Let's go to the navigation base service. I don't seem to be using this navigation manager just yet. Anyway, to do that, we first need to know what the current path is. So we're going to do this with current URI, just a property. This is going to be navigation manager.uri. Should be current URI. It's always represented as an absolute. Okay. And then we need just a simple method to check whether our slug is in, whether our current URI contains our slug. I'm going to keep these public for now, so we might want to access them through in our app. And I'm gonna add a region. Oops. And let's say I'm going to call it route checks for now. Checks. And this I probably don't want to do in my base class, but let's just say bool is about page. And we just have a string of paths, and then just say contains paths. Path. Oops. I return that, of course. I'm going to move this to my app navigation. This about page. Probably have to add this. Which just makes our other one complain again. Let's just quickly fix that by moving out this navigation service. Let's create a folder. I put it in here. Just namespaces. Gonna copy this file from my other single page app. Places. And update the namespaces. Keep this. Yep. Okay. Now I have to update my imports. and my use of this. This is actually things that you shouldn't be seeing, but okay. Going to do the same in here. Ah, it's already there. Oops, I got a little sidetracked there. Okay, that's all we now need to highlight our active page. We're just simply going to add or remove the active CSS class. Did I undo this or something? Thought this was... Probably did it on another page. Navigation service dot navigate up to about, and then in here in the CSS classes I am going to do a little if statement. Is about page, if so, else nothing. Just add the active class. What's this? It expects a parameter, which is not really what I intended to do. Let's see why this doesn't have to be. Has to be my dot about. Some more small sidetracking. Sorry for that. Just going to add those to the interface. Oops. Okay, that's that. And now we have this. So on the sidebar menu component, this should be highlighted when I'm on the exact page. Whoops. What's this doing here? I'm quickly going to log the current URI just for you to see. Console current URI, that's coming from the navigation manager. And let's also try to access the base URI. Just to see. And then you have some more stuff. Maybe some useful methods to absolute URI could be useful, and the base relative. let's not go too deep in that. This current URI you're going to see is just the same as application manager dot URI, I think. Yeah, dot URI. Let's rerun. Just refresh it. And then here you say true. That just means our property of current URI equals the current URI. And here you see the base URI. So this should be the same when I navigate to the about page. So I'm gonna click on this info icon. Didn't log anything. Let's go back. Of course, because I meant to log these things into the navigation method, but I logged them into the sidebar in the is about page method. So when I open the sidebar, it does log true. Yeah, that's the same thingy. And we are on the about page, and it just logs the base path. That was just for you to see some extra info. And the purpose of this was, of course, to highlight the correct page we were on. So if we now go to parks, it shouldn't highlight the about page. Cool. Now it's up to you and up to me, of course, to do this for every page. Yeah. Of course, don't forget to style this CSS class. That's just a simple CSS class that has a color, a different color. So like, yeah, that's all there is to that. Next up is a detail page. So the same page, but with an ID or some other query string parameters. How I would go about this is I would make another no, not that. Another void method. And I would either just have an extra parameter like let's just work with strings, but ID. It also could be a GUID, of course, or an integer or something else. So you could do it like that. So you're kind of overloading the method with an extra parameter, or you could really say navigate to about detail something, however you want to call it. And okay, let's implement this method. I'll always take the wrong one. String ID. And to do this, just gonna use some string manipulation, concatenation, whatever you like to call it. What was it? Route paths? No. Route paths. No. About, and then a slash, and then this ID. Assuming this one doesn't have a slash, doesn't end with a slash. Okay, now to implement this on the page, support this on the page, I would make another, let's get rid of that one, would just make another page thingy, do slash, and then if I'm not mistaken, it's something like this. You could specify the type, but it's not necessary, I think. And this one, ID, so this query string parameter, if I'm not mistaken, could also be like this. Like this should be the full version, how it was back in the day with PHP. This should be the short version. And this is seen as a parameter, a route parameter. So we could do parameter string, maybe make it nullable since it's not always there, and have ID. And then let's quickly make that visible somewhere. Let's say add ID. And now we need to be able to navigate there. So I'm going to do that on the index page where I do navigate to about. I am going to make, let's just copy this element for now. And, oops, navigate, add a string test. Yeah, it looks like we are in trouble with the, so how can we resolve that? I think we can just do this in Blazor. Yep, I wrap it with an at brackets. Should work, and we just have an ID of test. Let's rerun the app. Remove this stupid interface. Oops. Let's refresh. Now we have two buttons over these two info icon buttons. One should be going to, doesn't actually display in here, I think. Anyway, one should be just going to the about page and the other to the about page with an info ID. So this is the normal one. This should be, yes, this one goes to about page slash test as the ID. And then we see here this test after Belgian Dogos is the ID printed. So that's how you use that. Could be useful for like detail pages. Let's say if I click on a meetup here, I want to see the detail of the meetup. What's also a scenario I had is, let's show it in my other application. Okay, this is another application. Let's check out a detail page. So by just clicking on this dog, we should go to the detail page. What happens here is we already have the data about this dog, so we're just going to fill this detail page with the data we have. We don't need to do an extra API call or anything. You see the slug in here. This is an ID, the ID of the dog on the detail page. However, if we refresh this, we don't have the data yet, so we're going to do a call to the API to specifically get this dog's data. So this would be a page that supports so actually if the data of the dog is already in memory or in our state management, we could actually just do /detail and it should load the dog without a slug. I, I think I forced it to require a URL, of course, but that's a possible scenario. So what happens in this application, it's going to check if there is an ID given, but if there's already data loaded for this dog with this ID, it's just gonna load it from the state management and not do the extra API call. Phew. I hope that wasn't too confusing. Let's undo this example. Since I'm not going to do this on the about page. Just know that that's how you could work with extra query string parameters. Okay, this ID can go. What I didn't show, so I'm sorry, I'll have to undo it, undo my removal. What I didn't show, what I wanted to show is if I now go to this test, so this detail page with a ID. Okay, it's still highlighted. This is good. This is actually what I wanted. I expected this wouldn't be highlighted since, oh, okay, somehow we went back to, oh, okay, still works. Yeah, we're on the test. And yet this is highlighted, of course, because we use the contains method. So this one is, yeah, whatever. So you could come across scenarios where you don't want to have this highlighted on the detail page, or yeah, you can play with that. Next up is routing history, but let me first remove this extra thing again, this extra code. Let's close everything. And let's check out the base service. I first want to answer a possible question, one that I had. You see this usage of JavaScript to access the window.location.open. JavaScript also is able to go back into the route history, so navigate to the previous page, all that stuff programmatically. However, we don't want to do this in a single page application since, as I explained before, this is going to force reload the page, which isn't a great user experience and is basically resetting your application, reloading your entire application instead of just the page. So I implemented a very simple and stupid route history myself, which is not at all perfect, but it's good enough for me to manipulate, control and manipulate however I see fit. I'm just going to do this in my base service, my base class. Going to add a property. I'm going to keep it private, and I'll call it routing history or something, or navigation history. That's basically a list of strings that is going to contain all the routes I navigated to, the user navigated to recently. And when the user presses back or something, it's going to remove the last element of the list. When it's navigating to a new page, it's going to add the current URI to this history and so on. And that is mainly the reason why I like to create some kind of wrapper around this original navigate to, so I can control what happens before or after and all that stuff. So just gonna put it on the top and say every time this method fires, I'm going to, assuming I'm only using this one to navigate to within my app, of course, I'm going to say navigation history dot add current URI. Let's add the method to navigate back. Just a void method. This is navigation history. This is navigation manager. Ooh. And we have a method remove last route from history. Let's add the method. Let's make another region. Let's call it route history. These regions are just so I can fold them easily. If I open the file, I'll just see something like this. Next time I open the file, I mean, I'll just see like nice chunks. Let's change this in navigation history. Reset the route history. It's another method, but let's first see what we're doing here. So if the navigation history has any route in it, like if there's a history built up yet already, we're going to just remove the last route. If there is no history yet, we can't really go back, and we're just going to reset the navigation history to seems a bit stupid, but okay. We just want to reset the navigation history to either a path we specified, so we could manipulate the history. Just set one item of, for example, if we want could be like that your index is not the first page the user sees, maybe it's like the login page or something. So you could reset it to the login page, something like that. I would suggest you play around with all these things. This is really specific to how I like to use these things, but it can surely be improved upon. So, yeah. To explain the reason for this override path is, let's say a user is logged in and is currently on a page that requires authentication, but for some reason the user loses the authenticated state. You might want to, you don't want the user to be able to go back to the page it needs authentication for. If that is your application, for example, an administrator dashboard, yeah, the user shouldn't be able to go back in that regard. Next up, let's just add a button to go back in the routing history. Let's go to this about page. And I'm simply going to add a button. Let's just add it here, button, on click, application service dot. Did I already add these? I didn't add them to the interface yet. Navigate back. This one. Need to put it here. Navigate back. Just call it back. And rerun the project. Probably have to rebuild my shared SPA project before rerunning. So I reload the page, the application. I go to the about page. I see this back button here. So we're now on the about page, and I click back and we're going to the index page. Let me quickly log the routing history in the console so you can see what happens. I just wrote two console.write line statements before adding something to the navigation history and after. Of course, when we navigate back, you're not really going to see it. Let's maybe, just add this here as well. Before back, after back. I don't really know why I'm going so in depth, because this is nothing very stable, far from perfect. I'll explain in a bit. Let's see. Before nav, there's nothing. After nav, it has the index URL, so which is actually the previous page, which is what we needed. Because now we can say back to the last element of the routing history. So which is this one, before back and after back, it's empty again. Okay. That is all I have to show you. My apologies for always dragging out these videos. Could have probably explained all of this in maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes. But oh, I like to show the implementations. What I wanted to say, of course, this is far from perfect. If you start using a combination of the browser back buttons with this, it might not act completely like you would want to. Or the same for the mobile back buttons or swipe gestures. Things could go wrong, but you have nearly full control of your routing navigation history now. You can reset the navigation history however you like. So I think that's all very useful for real case scenarios, real world applications. Cool. See you in the next video, which is probably going to be about progressive web apps to install this application on your mobile device. Cool.